Cookies. All right, I think we're going to get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy McGinnity. I work in Wilmot's Shared Resources as a staff scientist. I'm here to talk to you about what NCI designation means to the shared resources, and this is part of our monthly Lunch and Learn seminars where we kind of bring in a topic and we spotlight a service. This month is a little special, talking about our NCI designation, which we announced a few weeks ago. So to start, prior to our NCI designation, we went in and submitted, I don't know how to minimize this. Sorry. All right, I guess, oh, there it goes, okay. Before we submitted, we had this nice empty catchment area space where we were not previously served by an NCI designated center. East of Rochester, the nearest cancer center was basically a car ride trip or a plane ride to New York City. And this circle of space serves over 3 million people in our catchment area. Our catchment area is approximately 27 counties. It's 27 counties with 3 that overlap with Roswell Park in Buffalo. Okay, so after we received NCI designation, you can see that we've filled in this major white area that was previously underserved, and we have 3 overlapping counties with Roswell. And interestingly, our catchment area serves a wide variety of populations. 23 counties are not served by any other NCI designated cancer center. We have a disproportionate aging and rural population. A third of our residents living in our catchment area live in rural areas. If we look here on the right, these yellow counties are Appalachian counties through the federal census data, and each green dot indicates a Wilmot Care location. The blue dots represent our Bassett Health locations, which we have strong collaborations, especially in the fields of hematology. And we collaborate with them to see additional patients that are located throughout our catchment area, primarily on the eastern side. Interestingly enough, we also have the highest per capita population of deaf adults in the nation. And this is important when it comes to our community outreach and engagement, making sure that we are engaging the deaf population in clinical trials and making sure that we are serving both our rural residents as well as our urban residents, and kind of working with COE and all of the different parts of the scope of the CCSG to make sure we're able to provide our patients with the most up-to-date clinical trials and breakthrough science. So if we were to look at our catchment area in terms of cancer incidence, Wilmot has a higher cancer incidence compared to both our state as well as the US. And in our catchment area, if it were considered its own state, it would have the highest cancer incidence in the US, just behind the state of Kentucky. And this is large part due to our similar population that we serve. All of those Appalachian counties are fairly similar to those those that are served in Kentucky. And combined, we have a very diverse New York compared to what we may see in New York City. Okay, so going in for the CCSG, there's pretty much 5 major topic areas that present and create write-ups, and they highlight all of the major breakthrough research and clinical trials being offered at Wilmot. We have 3 research programs, including our cancer microenvironment, cancer prevention and control, and our genetics, epigenetics, and metabolism. We are also working on creating a developmental therapeutics research program, and we are recruiting to help fill these roles. We also have our clinical trials office, and they are in charge of patient safety and data monitoring, making sure we're having high accruals in our clinical trials, making sure our patients can receive the best care. We also have our Cancer Research Training and Education Coordination, or CERTEC. This is making sure that Wilmot is training the next generation of cancer researchers, whether they're PhD, MD, PhD, or MD students and fellows. And then we have our community outreach and engagement team, and this office was very pivotal in our CCSG application. They're making sure that we're aware of what our community needs are and that we're able to represent them in our clinical trials, overcoming the disparities that our catchment area faces. And then finally, we have our shared resources, which is what I'm here to talk to you today about. When we went into our application, we had 6 fully fledged shared resources, including our genomics, cytometry, biobank, human biophysiology, imaging and radiation, and our biostats and bioinformatics shared resource. In our most recent submission, we had our metabolomics shared resource, which was under development, and significant progress has been made to make this shared resource become fully fledged in the near future. I don't think it's fully fledged just yet. So I wanted to highlight some of our shared resources compared to our institutional cores. And this will become important later on when I discuss how we acknowledge our CCSG, Cancer Center Support Grant. So on the institutional side, or CART resources, we have our Center for Advanced Microscopy and a Center for Advanced Light Microscopy and Nanoscopy, or CALM, that I really wanted to call out because CALM is actually part of our imaging and radiation shared resource here on the right for Wilmot. And we have 3 cores that are both institutional and Wilmot shared resources, which include our Genomics Research Center, our flow cytometry resource, as well as metabolomics. On the Wilmot side, we also have an animal resource, which provides access to a whole blood analyzer for mouse blood samples. And we also have our unique shared resources, including our biostatistics and bioinformatics shared resource and our human biophysiology shared resource. And the other half of the imaging and radiation shared resource, we have several irradiators that we allow investigators to be trained on or take their samples to in the radiation portion of the imaging and shared resource. So I'm bringing you all together, all of our shared resources. We created a logo that really highlights that our shared resources are heavily connected. Our shared resources directors meet quarterly, and they also work very well together, making sure projects are handed off from one shared resource to another, making sure the samples are intact and they can be processed further down the line using additional techniques. And I wanted to highlight our shared resource landing page as well. We've updated these websites to include language for acknowledging the Cancer Center Support Grant in your publications, presentations, and grant submissions. We also have upcoming events, whether they're shared resource lunch and learns, upcoming workshops, kind of just keeping you in the know. So if you have questions, you can visit this website for upcoming events. Additionally, if you have questions on the shared resources, you can always send me an email as well. So the major responsibilities of our shared resources are split into 3 aims. We ensure prioritization of our shared resource services for our Wilmot members and our research community. We identify and support evolving technology and methodologies, and we also foster and enable collaboration among Wilmot scientists. We're able to fund our shared resource investments through commitments from the institution as well as Wilmot, and we also seek additional outside funding. For our biobank, we recently received an Empire State Development Grant that helped us revamp and kind of lay the groundwork for infrastructure and equipment for our biobank. These investments can be seen in the high impact publications that result from these services. Over 27% of our publications from the last 5 years were high impact, which is considered a journal impact factor score of over 10. And I have an example of a paper published by the Land Lab last year, pretty recent in December. And this paper did acknowledge our biostatistics and our genomic shared resources. So when you're publishing and submitting papers, really take care to acknowledge the shared resources, but now we have to take care that we are acknowledging our P30 grant, which is our Cancer Center Support Grant, and I have language that is also on the website, but also in this slide. To really highlight the 5-year impact of the shared resources, we've served over 110 Wilmot investigators, supported over 310 grants, and over 150 of these are NIH supported, and 25% of those are NCI supported, NCI funded. And the shared resources have supported over 400 publications, again, 27% of which are high impact. And overall, we had supported investigators with over $1.8 million in subsidies. And this is also kind of a pivotal point of our Cancer Center Support Grant. With this money, so it's $10 million over a 5-year period, we're able to really solidify and sustain our shared resources that much more. We're able to continue providing our members with these subsidies and also kind of secure our staff scientists, our staff members in the shared resources, kind of have their time protected with the money from the CCSG. So one of the critical components of our Cancer Center Support Grant was the section, the shared resource management. And we highlight all of our shared resources. And I'm kind of going in now of what set each shared resource kind of apart from other cancer centers and what made us stand out in our application. So to start, we have our biobank, which is directed by Brad Mills. Currently, there's over 6,700 samples from over 2,100 cases, and we also have a PEDS biobank in development. And in our first submission for the CCSG, the biobank was an under development shared resource, so now we can really see that the biobank is fully fledged and really kicking. Next, we have our biobank, or biostats and bioinformatics shared resource. They've aided in over 195 grant submissions and 87 investigator-initiated studies. Many of our Wilmot investigators utilize them for grant submissions and will continue to use them moving forward. Our cytometry shared resource is a pretty big workhorse, both institutionally and Wilmot supported. They've had over 260 users, supporting over 178 grants, 89 of which are NIH funded, and 17% of those are NCI funded. Genomics is also a major workhorse, both funded by the institution as well as Wilmot. And for our reporting period for the CCSG, over $16.1 million was billed. And our genomics shared resource has a lot of advanced equipment and service offerings, especially in the field of spatial transcriptomics. So that really highlighted our capacity to support researchers in the field of genomic research. Our human biophysiology shared resource is a very unique shared resource, studying and supporting primarily our cancer prevention and control research program. They were the only shared resource and the only section that scored an exceptional on our CCSG resubmission. Then we have our imaging and radiation shared resource. So between the imaging and radiation, they have 3 NIH shared instrumentation grants, supporting 2 microscopes and the small animal radiation research platform, really impacting that our shared resources are, really highlighting that our shared resources are successful in obtaining additional grants to bring on more advanced technologies to further support our investigators. And finally, we have our metabolomics shared resource. It's currently under development, however, is billing and currently supporting several investigators with their projects. Some other key achievements, primarily in the form of new instrumentation. We've supported several different shared resources with new equipment acquisitions, supporting all of our research programs, and importantly, again, with our biobank, we were able to purchase the Xenium with the Empire State Development Grant. We're able to kind of stay ahead of the curve with the new service offerings by getting a feel for what the research community needs. And we do this by offering our Wilmot members an annual survey where we kind of assess how we're doing as shared resources as a whole, and whether there's any additional services you'd like us to take on, how we can leverage existing technologies, and so forth. So we have here in our graph kind of our completion rate among research programs for the last few years. It's usually around 50%. The survey is currently open for investigators, so if you're a grad student or a postdoc in a lab, please remind your advisor that they need to complete the survey. And this year, we're also asking Wilmot members to share the survey with their lab, so we can kind of get the user case from the perspective of a grad student that goes to the flow core. Maybe they have a different experience from the higher level PI. So we really want to get that full picture of how our shared resources are doing, and whether there's additional workshops, training, kind of anything that we may offer to help us continue to be successful. Moving forward, we are also trying to kind of bridge additional partnerships between existing parts of the CCSG, mainly with our CERTEC office as well as our COE office. On the CERTEC side of things, we're hosting our Lunch and Learn series. We also are planning to host additional shared resource workshops. Again, with our CCSG support, we're able to provide these workshops and continue to really stay ahead of the curve and offer trainings that our members may seem beneficial. We're also working with the pathway programs here at U of R and mentoring students in the MEP, STEP, and SURF programs that serve high school students and undergraduates, as well as hosting high school and undergraduate students in our labs. With our COE team, we're working more on getting what shared resources do out there in the community by attending sporting events, the Warrior Weekend, and we're also developing a virtual lab tour that can be used at various outreach events, but the user would wear the Oculus headset and kind of take a tour and see all of the new equipment that's in the genomic shared resource and kind of see how that helps further cancer research. So overall, we have our future goals of the shared resource. We'll continue to support our Wilmot members, provide additional workshops as needed, and then continue to engage with our community. So now I kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit and discuss more on the practical implications of NCI designation on our shared resources. So our CCSG is a way to, it's a good tool to leverage for recruitment. The NCI designation places us in the top echelon of cancer centers in the US. And there is actually, one of the cancer centers had posted a paper about how patients that are seen at cancer centers that are designated have a higher likelihood of surviving their cancer and better treatment options. Being part of the NCI designated cancer centers, we're also able to access the shared resources at other institutions. We can collaborate with them. And this is part of our shared resource management's ongoing efforts. We have access to additional funding opportunities. So there's a few administrative supplements that we can apply for now that we're NCI designated, as well as developmental funds for pilot awards and new investigator awards. And there are some foundations that only allow applications from NCI designated centers, including the V Foundation. And the last aspect of NCI designation that really impacts our investigators is that we're required to acknowledge the P30, the CCSG grant, in all of our publications and presentations moving forward. So we have this language that we'd like you to include in your papers, posted on all of our shared resource websites. And if you have questions, you can email me or shared resource director for that boilerplate language. So acknowledging the grant is very important. It's the only way we can claim publications, and these are important because when we go in for our renewal period 5 years later, we really want to be able to highlight these different papers that we publish, especially the high impact ones, and really help us tell the story of how shared resources helped carry our research forward, how impactful the projects we supported really were. And we can only do that by acknowledging the shared resource as well as the CCSG grant. So this is an example of the boilerplate language that's on all of our websites. If you go to the biostats and bioinformatics website, all this extra shared resources names won't be there, but you'll kind of get the gist of it. Again, acknowledging the CCSG, we have to acknowledge the core language that we used in that application. So instead of using CALM, we will be using Imaging and Radiation Shared Resource. Instead of using the Genomics Research Center, we'll be using Genomics Shared Resource, that sort of thing. That's also on our shared resource websites. Okay, so that's listed here. So again, like flow is not just flow cytometry resource, we're cytometry shared resource, and we have a couple other extras. If you use the human biophysiology shared resource, it's two different labs. It's the PEAK and CCPL labs. We are acknowledging them as a whole, again, as human biophysiology shared resource. And then finally, to claim these publications, we have to utilize the CCSG grant, and you have to create a PMCID number. This is typically generated by the journal. However, there are ways if you need to create one and obtain one yourself. First, you'll deposit the files. There's tutorials available for you, and Minor Library will also help facilitate this process with faculty to make sure that they comply with NIH's public access policy. So that kind of wraps up the implications side of things. I wanted to highlight a couple of upcoming events. Somebody had registered for this and mentioned there's a multi-site studies course in Blackboard. Sorry, I had a teacher named Blackbird. That you can register. It's free, it's self-paced. I can send you more information if you're interested. We also have the upcoming GRC spatial workshop. It's the part 1 of it. That will be on Tuesday, April 29th. It's in this room. You'll need your laptop required. And this is also on our shared resource news and events page. Our next Lunch and Learn event will be on the cytometry shared resource, presenting on Seahorse. And then I think I have the date wrong. So there's a community outreach and engagement workshop that will focus on communicating science. I think the applications will be open in early summer, not April, but that will be posted on our website as well. And again, we have our shared resource landing page. We're trying to direct many of our users there. If you have questions, you can visit there or send me an email. And I'd like to conclude that these Lunch and Learn workshop series are supported by Vivian Palladoro, who's on the call. She joins our meetings and learns all about what our shared resources are and the services they offer. Vivian's a retired URMC clinical pathology administrator. With that, I'll take any questions. And yeah, we have extra sandwiches you guys can take too as well. Thank you. Oh, yes.
So does the level of support for us change at all with the designation, or are the prices the same?
The prices are the same. So if we had not received designation, I think we would have seen a different story. The subsidies might not have been present, but with the funding, we can kind of keep everything as is and use those funds to help us push the boundary on developing new assays, kind of carrying the technology even further, supporting our technicians and staff that are in the shared resource and helping them with upcoming projects for investigators. Yep, go ahead.
What's the difference between the comprehensive designation versus
Yes, so we're not a comprehensive cancer center. I think we can go for it in a few years, not for our resubmission. I know as a cancer center, our focus is more on the basic science side of things. I'm not entirely sure what the designation between comprehensive is, or like a clinical site versus a cancer center.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's a bigger budget. That's
Okay.
the biggest thing. But the difference, every cancer center starts at the basic or clinical, and then you have to do certain things and show that you're able to then jump to a comprehensive center, which really means you do both basic and clinical research. You're participating in a lot of clinical trials. Take the next level. So generally, it's a 10 to 15 to 20-year process where you go from clinical to that. So what it means is it means different things to different people, but ultimately you have a bigger budget to play with, and so you can invest in different things. You can reduce prices more, and things like that. But we're quite a way away from that right now.
Did you have a question?
Yes. So when I saw the NCI designation, I saw that like officially it means you're in the top 4% of cancer centers. What does that 4% mean? With research output or
Is it research or what?
research output, or like where does that number come from?
So that means that we've all submitted grants and we have received funding from the NIH, NCI. Whereas others, so it kind of puts us in that step above. We get the $10 million for 5 years, and we can continue to support clinical trials, open new investigator-initiated studies to meet our patients' needs. So it kind of helps continue to push the boundaries of cancer research and have that leg up compared to where we previously were. We have additional funding to further study, to put towards different trials, towards different shared resources. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm answering it concisely.
So I think the answer to your question is there's X hundreds of thousands of cancer centers in the country.
We're
74%
73rd,
of
yeah.
them have designation. So just sheer number, it's not necessarily the amount of funding or other things. So it's just the number of cancer centers in this nation that are NCI designated. It's a top tier amount. A lot of that will lead to more funding, more trials, more patients, and things like that. It's not I don't think it's a monetary number. I think it's just a count.
So 4% is more. You're saying is how many succeeded in getting the designation. It's not to do with anything.
I believe that's what the number is, but is it the number you're referring to?
Yeah, it's 4%.
Out of all the cancer centers there is in the US, 44% have the NCI designation.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, logically, when you think about that, with the funding that's specific to NCI designated centers, that only NCI designated centers can get, that Tracy talked about, will help increase research funding, increase recruitment capabilities, increase other types of things that 4%, while it's 4% of all cancer centers in the country, they have other capabilities and opportunities to further enhance and inform other cancer centers.
Yep.
What was the criteria to get the NCI? What separates us from other hospital agencies? What separated us from maybe 8 years ago? Trying to apply for it.
Yeah, so we first submitted in 2021, and we scored very well, close to the funding line, but they ultimately recommended us apply for an A1 submission, so we were able to resubmit in 2024, early of last year. So we're scored based on primarily these main areas. So we have our research programs. What kind of like pushed us over the edge most recently was we had a lot of institutional buy-in. So getting NCI designation was part of the university's strategic plan. So we have the backing of not only Wilmot and URMC, but also the university itself. Highlighting again our community outreach and engagement. So having those satellite sites and other care centers within our catchment area so that we can serve both our rural and urban populations. really getting our community advisory boards in place. Our clinical trials was also very pivotal, demonstrating that we have increasing accruals in our clinical trials being offered to our patients, showing that we're having accruals in our other locations besides just Wilmot. Our cancer research, training, and education, they scored very well, and they have various T32 grants, trainee grants, and the cancer control grant, actually, their resubmission scored a perfect score. So we have multiple elements of our grant that went in that scored very well, and kind of culminating in all of us getting the NCI designation this round. And shared resource scored very well too, both times. Yeah.
Does one need to be faculty or affiliated with Wilmot to use these resources?
No. You can use the shared resources without having a Wilmot affiliation. If you're interested in becoming a member, we can provide you with that information. There are some criteria that need to be met. And if you become a member, you'll be eligible for those subsidy rates.
And the other question I had too, from slide, I guess it's 5, which is really interesting, senior catch area.
Yes.
Some of these stats are really helpful for talking about, for the study sections, talking about our ability to recruit from a broad area of the state. I think reviewers just want to understand, to show them something like this or like this step. Are these available, like slides available, or are these figures available for us to use?
So we have a couple tools that our COE office can help connect you with. So there's one tool called Canvas, and then there's another tool called Cancer in Focus that I think are available at the COE website. Yes. And then COE is also very helpful in connecting investigators with the kind of information you're looking for, and as well as like opportunities to present research to the community.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious in the context of my own brain cancer.
Okay.
If they would have information that maybe neurosurgery wouldn't necessarily have available. This is at a different level for
Yeah.
cancer care.
And they can break down like based on like cofactors, like people who smoke in the area. They can break it down by different elements of that as well in the Cancer in Focus. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Feel free to take another sandwich and cookie before you leave.